It happened so quietly that I almost missed it. For years, I had become the guy who always left first. Birthday parties, barbecues, football watch nights, Thanksgiving dinners, it didn't matter. I'd smile, help clean the table, thank everyone for having me, and disappear before the night truly began. Nobody asked why. People assumed I was busy. The truth was harder. I never wanted to overstay my welcome because I spent most of my childhood feeling like I never really belonged anywhere. Then one Friday night, my best friend's older sister looked straight into my eyes and said something that completely changed my life. "You're leaving again?" I laughed awkwardly. "Yeah, early morning tomorrow." She folded her arms. "That's funny." "What is?" "You've had an early morning every Friday for almost 3 years." Before I could answer, she smiled. "I dare you." I blinked. "What?" "Stay." I had no idea that accepting that one ridiculous dare would lead me to the family I'd spent my entire life searching for. "My name is Ethan. I met Mason during freshman year of college after we accidentally grabbed the same backpack from the campus gym. Mine had protein bars. His had engineering textbooks. We argued for 5 minutes before realizing neither backpack actually belonged to us. By the end of the day we were laughing about it over burgers. We've been best friends ever since. Mason came from one of those families that felt impossible. His parents still flirted after 30 years of marriage. They argued without yelling. They hugged constantly. Every Sunday they cooked enough food for 20 people even though only 6 usually showed up. Walking into their house felt like stepping into another world. Mrs. Carter never let anyone leave hungry. Mr. Carter remembered everyone's birthday. Even their golden retriever greeted visitors like long-lost heroes returning from war. Meanwhile, I grew up differently. Dad left when I was 9. Mom worked double shifts as a nurse until cancer took her during my sophomore year of college. After that, silence. No siblings. No grandparents. No holiday traditions. Just work. Bills. An apartment that echoed every time I opened the door. Mason never pitied me. He simply included me. Every football game. Every cookout. Every Christmas dinner. Every birthday. I always came. And I always left first. Not because I wanted to. Because I was terrified they'd eventually realize I wasn't really family. People get tired of outsiders. At least that's what life had taught me. The only person who seemed to notice my disappearing act was Mason's older sister, Lily. She was 3 years older than us. Funny. Confident. The kind of woman who could make strangers laugh in grocery store checkout lines. She lived 2 hours away but visited often. Every time she saw me. "Leaving already?" Every single visit. I'd smile. "Yeah." She'd raise an eyebrow. "Sure." Then she'd let it go. Until that Friday. After daring me to stay, she sat beside me on the back porch while everyone else watched a movie inside. "You know," she said softly, "you don't relax until you're walking to your car." I laughed. "I don't know what you're talking about." She looked at me patiently. "You apologize every time someone offers you food." "I do not." "You thanked Mom 6 times for letting you use the bathroom." I stared at the porch floor. "I did?" She nodded. "Why are you always afraid you're bothering us?" The question landed like a punch. Nobody had ever asked me that. Not once. I shrugged. "Just how I am." "No." She shook her head gently. "Nobody is born believing they take up too much space." For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she said something I'll never forget. "You know what my mom says?" "What?" "If someone keeps coming back to your house, they're not looking for food. They're looking for home. I couldn't answer. Because my throat had completely closed. That night, for the first time in years, I stayed. Nothing magical happened. We played cards. Mr. Carter cheated shamelessly. Mrs. Carter laughed until she cried. Mason lost every game. Lily beat everyone. At midnight, Mrs. Carter packed leftovers into 3 containers and handed one to me without asking. When I reached for my wallet as a joke, everyone looked horrified. Mr. Carter pointed toward the front door. Son, if you ever try paying for food in this house again, I'll personally carry you outside. Everyone laughed. Including me. On the drive home, the apartment felt quieter than ever. The next weekend, Mason invited me over again. Without thinking, I stayed. Then I stayed again. Weeks turned into months. Something inside me slowly changed. One afternoon I arrived early to help Mr. Carter repair the backyard fence. We worked for hours. Halfway through, he handed me a bottle of water. You know, he said casually, I've always wanted another son. I nearly dropped the hammer. He continued measuring wood like he hadn't just shaken my entire world. You fit around here. Simple words. But nobody had ever said them to me before. That evening Lily found me sitting alone on the porch. You've been crying. No, I haven't. She smiled. You really need new excuses. Instead of teasing me further, she simply sat beside me. Sometimes kindness isn't talking. Sometimes kindness is staying quiet long enough for someone else to feel safe. Eventually I whispered. I don't know how to belong. She looked at me. I don't think belonging is something you earn. What do you mean? I think it's something people give. That sentence lived inside my heart. Months passed. Lily and I became friends. Real friends. We started texting. Then grabbing coffee. Then walking through farmers' markets on Saturday mornings. Neither of us called them dates. Maybe we were both afraid. One rainy afternoon we volunteered together at a community food pantry. Watching her kneel beside an elderly woman to help organize groceries changed something in me. She wasn't kind because people were watching. She was kind because that's who she was. On the drive home she noticed I was quiet. What? I think you're the nicest person I've ever met. She laughed. No. Yes. My mom's nicer. I'm serious. She smiled toward the windshield. My parents taught us something. What? Kindness isn't about fixing people. It's about reminding them they're worth caring about. I looked out the window so she wouldn't see my eyes filling again. Because that's exactly what she'd been doing for me. Without ever saying it directly. Around Christmas, Mason cornered me while we shoveled snow from his parents' driveway. So, you like my sister? I froze. What? He grinned. Dude. I've seen you look at her. I sighed. Maybe. Why haven't you asked her out? Because she's amazing. And? I'm me. Mason leaned his shovel against the garage. Ethan. Yeah. My sister doesn't care about money. I know. She doesn't care about fancy jobs. I know. She doesn't care that you grew up differently. I stayed silent. He smiled. She only cares whether people have good hearts. Then he pointed the shovel at me. You've had one since the day I met you. That night I couldn't sleep. The next morning I asked Lily if she'd like dinner. She smiled immediately. I was wondering how long that would take. Dating her felt strangely easy. Not because relationships are effortless. Because neither of us pretended to be someone else. She knew my fears. I knew hers. She worried she'd never find someone who valued family the way she did. I worried everyone eventually left. Instead of laughing at our fears, we carried them together. 1 year later, I proposed during another Carter family barbecue. Not in a fancy restaurant. Not on a mountaintop. Just in the backyard where I'd learned what home looked like. Before Lily answered, Mrs. Carter started crying. Mr. Carter pretended something was in his eye. Mason shouted, "Finally!" Lily laughed so hard she almost forgot to say yes. She finally whispered, "Of course." The wedding wasn't extravagant. It didn't need to be. As I stood waiting at the altar, I looked around the room. Friends. Neighbors. Co-workers. The Carter family. People who had become my people. Halfway through the reception, Mr. Carter tapped his glass. "I'd like to say something." The room quieted. He looked directly at me. When Ethan first started visiting, he'd leave before dessert. Everyone laughed. I figured he just didn't like pie. More laughter. Turns out he didn't think he deserved to stay. Silence filled the room. Mr. Carter smiled warmly. "I hope today proves something." He walked over and wrapped me in the biggest hug I'd ever received. "You never had to earn your place here. You already had one." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Including mine. Years have passed since then. Now every Sunday our house is the loud one. Kids running through hallways. Neighbors dropping by without calling. Extra chairs pulled out because someone always brings another guest. Whenever someone apologizes for staying too long, Lily smiles. "You can stay." Whenever someone thanks us 5 times for dinner, I quietly pack leftovers into containers. Whenever someone hesitates at the front door, I remember the frightened young man who believed leaving early would protect him from rejection. Then I open the door a little wider. Because home isn't the place where you're invited once. Home is the place where people keep expecting you back. And sometimes, all it takes to change a lonely life is one person who notices you're always leaving too soon, and loves you enough to dare you to stay.